morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Millionaire Mindset Mornings. I apologize because I'm running a few minutes behind today. But basically, if you are new to Millionaire Mindset Mornings, what I do is every morning in the month of September, I come to you live at 8 a.m. and share with you some tips and strategies to help you be successful as well as to grow in your small business or side hustle. Okay. So, we are actually in week 4 where we're going to be talking about the inner millionaire, becoming the person who can keep and grow the bag. That is what our focus is going to be for this week. Okay. Now, before I get into it, real quick, I'm going to do my quick social media checks and then we're going to jump into today's topic. And usually, when I do the topic for the day, I usually will give you 3 points and then a millionaire mindset action steps for you to leave with so that you can start implementing some of the things that we discussed. All right. So let's go ahead and get into it. Like I said, let me introduce week 4's theme. We are talking about the inner millionaire, how to become the person who can carry, keep, and grow the bag. Because previously we've talked about our money habits, our mindset shifts, and how to make sure we stay away from dream killers. So now it's time to go a little bit deeper. So we're not so much focusing on your bank account balance. We are focusing on, can you become and sustain the version of you? Can you become the version of you who can actually sustain wealth? Okay. Because I don't want you just to get this money only for you to lose it in another year or two. Okay. So millionaires, they don't begin with the commas in your checks. It all starts with your confidence in your chest. All right. So say it with your chest. All right. So, and today's focus is going to be, we're going to talk about identity over income. Because who you are matters more than what you actually make. Okay. But why we're focusing on the inner millionaire is because I want to make sure you realize that your outer world often will reflect your inner world, or it follows suit to what your inner world looks like. So if you don't think that you're a millionaire, or you don't think like a millionaire, you won't move like a millionaire. So that's why we're going to be talking about becoming the inner millionaire, or tackling the inner millionaire. Okay. It's all about character before the cash. All right. So if you had good character before, chances are you're going to have good character after you get that money. But if you don't have the right type of character, when you start accumulating and getting money, then that poor character that you have is also going to be reflected when you have the money. Okay. Because like I said, I want you to get the money, keep the money, and grow the money. But wealth without wisdom, it won't last at all. All right. So that's just a little bit of what we will be tackling this week. The theme of the week is the inner millionaire and why we are tackling that. Let's go ahead and get into today's topic, identity over income. All right. So you need to be shaping your character as you're also shaping and building your business. Okay. If you don't do that, you will always feel broke no matter what is in your bank account. And we don't want that to happen. All right. So the first point I want to make in terms of our topic, identity over income, is that your identity shapes your destiny. So I'm going to put that on the screen real quick. Identity shapes your destiny. Identity shapes your destiny. And real quickly, we're going to dive into that point. Let me put it up there. All right. You can't out earn a broke identity. All right. If you feel like you're broke, if all you can think about is, or all you say to yourself, because we talked about that yesterday when we talked about our self-sabotage. If all you can say to yourself is, I'll never make this amount of money, I'll never get that raise, I'll never get this promotion, I'll never be able to do this kind of stuff in my business, I'll never be able to accumulate this kind of success in my business. If you have that kind of mindset and that kind of identity, that's a broke identity. Okay. And you can't out earn that. Because if you try to, or if you do, you're just going to knock yourself down and give yourself more negative self talk about why you're not doing enough, not making enough, all that kind of stuff. Okay. So you can't out earn a broke identity. So we need to make sure we're pouring into ourselves so that we can start seeing ourselves as millionaires, as someone who's capable of not only attaining wealth, but also maintaining the wealth. Okay. Because if you don't do that, any wealth you attain, any money you obtain, any success you attain, it'll slip right through your hands. And you don't want that to happen, okay? So start looking at yourself as someone who is a millionaire, who is someone who is going to acquire wealth, who is someone who's going to pass on a legacy for their children or their generations to come. Start looking at yourself like that. Like literally ask yourself, how do you see yourself? Do you even see yourself as a millionaire? If not, then you have to start working on that identity, okay? All right. Who you are. That is all your identity is. Who you are. Who do you see yourself as? Okay. That's how people are able to dream big. And when they dream big, they go big and stuff. You wonder how people are able to achieve some of their success. Yes, they put in the hard work. But first, before they even put in the hard work, they had to see it. Okay. They had to see themselves accomplishing that. And because they saw themselves accomplishing that, they put the work in to get to that level. But if you can't even see yourself as a millionaire, then you're not going to get to that level. So start picturing yourself as a millionaire. Okay. Now, I don't want to hammer home too much on that point because I can go in a whole lot, but I'm going to try and keep this really short and sweet. All right. So, the point number 2 that I have is that rich habits lead to rich identity. All right. So, your millionaire identity is built on discipline, not designer bags. Some of y'all have it totally confused. Some of y'all will be flashy and still have that broke mindset. You think if you put on the clothes and other accoutrements, if you have the designer bags and the designer shoes and all of that kind of stuff, then you feel like that's what your identity is tied to. Your identity is not tied to cars, clothes, and cash. All right. It is not tied to that. You have to know for yourself who you are. All right. So when you do those rich habits, that will cause your rich identity. So let me put point number 2 on the screen, and then we're going to go into it a little bit more. So rich habits. So are your habits rich? Habits lead to rich identity. Or do you have broke habits? And I'm not knocking anybody and what they do or how you spend your time. But if you spend your time talking about people, gossiping, trying to figure out what other people are doing, and you might not even be doing it in like a hateful or a mean way. But if you're doing that and not focusing on how you yourself can become better or how you can grow and develop in your business or bring your business to the next level, those are some broke habits. Okay. All right. Because what you do daily, just take inventory of what you're doing daily and ask yourself too, and what I'm doing daily, is this helping me to one, be a better person, two, help grow my business or my side hustle, three, lead me to the ultimate place I want to go. Okay. If any of those answers are no, you got to start changing some of your habits. Okay. Because your habits will create your identity. And if you have the right habits, then that will create and help you to achieve wealth. All right. But if you have broke habits, you're not going to see that. You always hear these success stories of celebrities and stuff like that. I've used Steve Harvey. I've used Tyler Perry. I've used Oprah Winfrey. You can even look at like Will Smith. All of these people, they didn't grow up in the best neighborhoods. They didn't have the best situations. Some of them, like Steve Harvey and Tyler Perry, they were homeless. Oprah, she was abused. They didn't have the best situations. But because they saw themselves achieving. All right, I'm back, y'all. I don't know how much y'all heard, but I was using celebrities as an example example and just saying I use Steve Harvey, or I should say I mentioned Steve Harvey, Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey, Will Smith, and I was just saying that their neighborhoods or where they grew up or their childhood, their background wasn't the most ideal, but they saw better for themselves. And because they saw better for themselves, because they saw themselves achieving more, that ultimately helped lead to their success. But the point I want to make is not only do you have to see it, you got to do the work every day to make sure you can achieve it. And that's where your habits come in. What habits are what you do on an everyday basis. So what habits are you doing? Just like I am on a fitness journey, okay? I want to be healthier. I want to lose a little bit of weight, but overall, I want to be healthier. If the habits I'm doing on a daily basis don't take me in that direction, guess what? I'm not going to achieve the things I want to do, or in terms of my fitness journey. Okay. It's the stuff I do every day that is going to get me closer to that. And the same thing for you. It's the stuff you do every day that's going to get you closer to your goals, closer to achieving the wealth that you want to have. All right. So what are you doing every day? Is it moving you forward, or is it moving you backwards? Or a lot of times what we're doing is just keeping us stuck and stagnant. All right. You're not really moving the needle. You're not getting any worse, but at the same time, you're not getting any better either. So just take inventory of that. So that was the second point. Rich habits lead to rich identity. And the third and final point I have is your income will ultimately follow your identity. So stop chasing checks and start building that character to sustain millions. And that just ties in everything that I've kind of talked about so far. So your income will follow your identity. Just like in the examples I used with the celebrities, they did that there, and then who they believe they are, it followed. Their money eventually follows. Let me put that on the screen. Income follows your identity. Because you can even see it. Some of these people who get wealthy quick, or just maybe they are I will say this, some people in the music industry, you will see they might had a really good song or a good hit and stuff like that. And then they're all flashy. They're flashing all the money, the cars, the cash, all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden they just fall off. And you don't really hear a whole lot more about them. If you see them again and out in public, they're not on the same level that they were on before. It doesn't seem like they have the same status. But oftentimes those people who you see like that, their habits, they weren't practicing some of the habits that probably got them some of the success that they got initially. They fell off and they stopped doing the work. They stopped putting in the work. Okay. And also, because they didn't have that as their identity, because they didn't believe that as their identity, guess what? They revert back to who they are before. A good example of this with just everyday people is a lot of people who win lotteries. They say most people who win the lottery do not keep that wealth. Like if you look at them years later, they're back in the same situation that they were before they won the lottery. Why? One, they didn't do the habits, develop habits to help them maintain their wealth. And two, they never really probably had the identity that they could be wealthy. All right. So I don't want that to happen to you. That's why I said we're talking about the inner millionaire, how to not only get, but to keep the bag as well as to grow the bag. Okay. Because I tell y'all, it's easy to get money. It's easy to make money. All right. The problem we have is keeping the money that we make. Okay. So I want you, when you start being successful in your business, or if you're already successful in your business, I want you to be able to keep and sustain that. All right. But that was all I have. Quick recap of the points that we had today. The first point was your identity. It shapes your destiny. The second point is that rich habits lead to rich identity. And the third and final point is that income will follow your identity. Okay. So I always have a millionaire mindset action step that I want you to take. What I want you to do is write down one I am statement that reflects your millionaire identity. Okay. So This is going back to those affirmations. Okay, so write one I am statement of who you are. Say I am, and it could just start off with I am a millionaire. Start believing that. Start believing that for yourself and say it every morning this week. Okay. All right. So that's all I have. Drop identity in the chat if you are choosing a millionaire identity first. Put identity in the chat if you believe that. Okay. And just remember, money fades, but it's your mindset that remains and stays when everything else fades and stays stable. Excuse me. All right. So I want you to build your millionaire identity. Remember to subscribe if you have not already done so. Share it with someone who can benefit from it. And our topic for tomorrow is we're going to start talking about some habits. We are going to talk about the habits of a high value hustler, okay? Because y'all are side hustlers like me. So we're going to talk about the habits that you need to create, okay? All right. Take care. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Happy Monday. I hope it's off. Your week is off to a wonderful start. See y'all again tomorrow at 8 a.m. Take care.